Welcome to the Tome. We call this a Tome because it's big. Perhaps not the biggest book though, but this is one of the incredible books in terms of the constitution or jurisprudence, in terms of constitutional jurisprudence in this country. We call it the Executive Constitutional Mandate, Demystifying the Fountain of Honors, Presidential Powers Overreach in Uganda. Because there are many allusions in terms of what can a president do in office, what should he do. So this book is basically based on Solus Populi, Solus Vei, which says the welfare of the people is supreme, premised under Solus Populi, Solus Vei, the welfare of the people is supreme, and it's dedicated to the unsung heroes of this country. I make my introduction by referring to some of what we call the legal gurus of this country, people like Professor Oloka Onyango and people like Professor Dr. Kabumba as well, who are highly respected, and I make quotations to that effect. But those of you who are interested in this book, you're going to be amazed at what you're going to find there. Because, for example, we talk about the unmasking of the truth behind Uganda's name. Who gave Uganda the name? Are you sure this allusion that Uganda came from Buganda, is that a true allusion? How about your red, black, and red flag? Do you realize it resembles England? Where do you get that ideology? How do you know what happened? Are you aware that Uganda was actually traded off in Germany? You know, it resembles Germany as opposed to England. You know, how about aspects to do with presidential mandates and aspects to do with constitutionalism? How about aspects to do with constitutional abrogations? You know, the pigeonhole constitutions and the like. You know, how about aspects to do with presidential immunities? We make those arguments. Interestingly, we also make arguments in terms of presidential emergency decrees. You know, when can you declare a state of emergency? Some of you remember the times when we had the COVID saga. You know, when His Excellency wakes up and says, okay, this is good law, and then they impound all vehicles on the road. Is that good law? Is it tenable in law? Can it follow the principle of legality? Perhaps also, even in terms of compulsory vaccination, those are schools of thoughts that I throw into this book. Can you be actually forced to be compulsory vaccinated? You look for this book. Separations of powers. Do we really have a true separation of power in Uganda today? Aspects to do with the creation of the rape of the temple, for example, arguing in terms of what my friend Justice James Ogola said, the rape of the temple. How about aspects to do with the militarization of the police? How about aspects to do what they call the posse comitatus doctrine? This argument of where we see red-belted armies on the streets of Kampala to enforce civilian duties. Is that legal in its sense? You probably want to read the books to find out whether or not that's so. How about the motorbike killings in terms of the assassins of women in Nasan and Entebbe? What went wrong? How about the Boda Boda sagas? How about the birth of the Boda Boda challenges? You know, the so-called Abdallah Chitata sagas. How about aspects to do with impeachment? Can we impeach a president? What are the conditions? Do we have legal basis for that? You know, can we borrow examples from other jurisdictions like America? You know, how about the aspects of checking on the executive? Do we even have a check of balance anymore? For example, the three arms the three arms of government. Do we really have those still operative in Uganda today? You know, those are arguments we make in terms of trying to find out, do we even have anything to do with parliamentary supremacy as it used to be? You know, we make arguments in terms of the debacles that happens between parliaments, the overwhelming of the parliament by wielded individuals who maybe were not even descriptive in terms of which, you know, ambit they were falling in terms of supervision roles. Were they army men? Were they just a group of mafias? How about aspects to do with what they call solus populi felix estel, the occasion to defend the peoples in order to assert their judicial independence? How about aspects to do with, when the courts tend to become more executive minded than the executive itself? I make allusion to different, propositions propounded by judicial officers like Justice Kakuru, Justice Professor Echiru Kubinza, Justice Mwangusha, aspects to do with Professor Kanyehamba, aspects to do with Justice Mugamba, Justice Ekoko, all those aspects. I make those arguments in terms of what is required in terms of that. Demystifying what they call the diminis natura lex doctrine, in terms of little things the law has no redress. Is it true? Can that be propounded as a legal doctrine today? Those aspects. We make those discussions in this book. How about aspects to do with absolute Buganda, as it were? The question of the Buganda crisis, the first Buganda crisis, the second Buganda crisis, the third Buganda crisis that most people don't know aware. How about issues to do with when the Kabaka was actually sued for adultery? These are arguments that I've never heard of. Many people have not read about them. The issue to do with the gonorrhea saga, or the syphilis, then in Ndwadde y'Abazira, when the Kabaka actually got that disease, argument to do with the Namasole crisis. All those aspects are actually discussed in this book. The coffin cake saga that happened recently, the Kayunga saga, all the burning of the Masiro, all those aspects are actually discussed in this book. So, and then the aspect of the exhausting the Buganda ghost, and then the aspect of the standing victory of the Nupe, the argument of the Nupe and their, the ideologies. Then we have also got what we call Vox Populi Vex Dei. In other, the voice of the people becomes the voice of God. Aspect to do with state versus religion, the emergence of what they call states. How about the conflict between the church and the state? All those arguments are propounded with authorities, by the way, in terms of what is required. Because we make, for example, a look at Justice Sekana's, decision in terms of the civil suit of Reverend Charles Odo versus the registered trustees of Church of Uganda. And then, of course, the Kakaide Saidi, Sadiki, and Suleiman Mugumba versus Uganda National Examination Board, and then the Demanche Sharon and others versus Makerere University. All those aspects, because they make that narrative in terms of the state versus religion, as it were. And then the argument of the mere change of power, and not mere change of arms, but rather a fundamental change. Was it a reality of myth? The argument of the NRM and its occurrence for the last time that they've been in office. The arguments in terms of the Speaker saga. You remember the Speaker saga with the likes of the late Olanya, and then the debacles that were there between the two individuals. And then we talk about also things to do with the troubled history in terms of our challenges, and and I also make the argument what they call ubi solidinum facit passem appellate, which means that they make desolate and call it peace in terms of what is coming today or what is happening today. And electoral democracies, for example, also the challenge of the severance, the right to privacy, this argument of shutting down the internet. Did you know that the right to the internet was actually protected by the UN Convention? And therefore, this argument of cutting off the internet is an infringement constitutionally in terms of your constitutional rights. And then we also have other aspects to do with the introduction of OTT, for example, the introduction of 12% excise duty on data. All those aspects are discussed in this book. So, my friends, I would like to encourage you to take the liberty of finding this book at lubogo.com or at suegeneristlawup.com, and also in all major bookstores in this country. This is constitutional law from then up to the present. My guarantee is it's the latest as far as constitutional jurisprudence is concerned in the history of this country. God bless you, and thank you for your attention.